All right, this is going to cover closing motion. In other words, what I simply mean is that I create pressure against my opponent by moving into him and he into me. So we're dealing with the movement in Shisa. It is very important to stop the upper torso training and focus just on understanding the footwork, because you need a very strong base and you need a really mobile base because things are happening so quick. So your feet have to be able to have a mind of their own because they're going to read the pressure coming from the hands when it should go forward, backward, right, or left. So there's this communication where the feet are independent from the hands, but they work together as a team. So I'm going to show you just some of the points to be aware of when you're practicing. Now the stance itself, the position you're in is personal, which means you have to find out what is going to work best for you. The width of your stance, the length of your stance, the stability of your stance. Now the stability comes from squatting down a little bit, dropping your center of gravity, all right? And again, you'll have to play with this. First of all, I'm right-handed, so I lead with my right foot. Now my foot spread, comfortable, is about right here. If it comes in here, I'm too top heavy this way. If I go out any further, I'm very stable this way, but I'm very weak this way. In other words, I have a very distinct, very weak line that the opponent can attack. So what I do is I put my foot just far enough forward so that if I rock my body, I feel stable. If I open it up and do it, I feel too stable, too solid. If I bring it back and rock my body, I feel top heavy. So I'm looking for that sweet spot to where I feel stable. Now this is width. Length, sort of the same thing. If I go too far, I really feel stable. Hard for me to move. Come back, top heavy. He can push me over very easy. So what is the position for me? That is about, for my height, my weight, that I feel comfortable. Now my back is bent from my waist this way. I don't hunch on my upper back. No, because what I want to do is I want to leverage the energy from the floor up through my legs, up through my hands. Because that is where I get my forward spring energy, from the floor. However, I want to be able to do it naturally. I don't want to have to push. So with my feet at a comfortable distance, bent ever so slightly with my head up, if I was to pick up my right foot at all, watch what happens. I tend to timber. Now the difference between timbering and falling is distance and angle of the body. In other words, if I'm really spread out and I raise my foot, I fall. I have too much energy forward. It's easy to lose control. If I timber, notice there's a momentary pause before I go. That allows me more control over my body weight, forward motion, but it also allows my energy to be always flowing forward naturally. I don't have to do anything. So that angle from the waist slightly forward. Now, how far you go forward depends upon your upper torso weight. I don't have to go very far because I'm very heavy in the upper torso. Some people who are light, you might see them at a more of an angle. That's okay. But the main thing of it is, I sit a little bit towards my heel. That lowers my center of gravity. My body is, as if you'll notice, is back of my forward foot. In other words, I'm not in the middle between my feet. No, you're always back a little bit. That always gives you natural energy flow. All right. Now, there are different ways that you move. If I'm going to move forward and backward, if I'm going to move forward, I always will move forward in very small steps. In other words, I do not take a distinct step. Because if I take a distinct step and he's a hold of me, he can jerk me because I've broken my base. So we call it step recover. See it? Baby step. Because before he even realizes what's happening, you've made your move. Plus you do little things with your hands in order to disguise your movement or to reduce down his ability to counter you, which we'll get to in a minute. So when you're practicing the forward and backward in Chisao, you'll react because of pressure. In other words, you're 5 pounds, he's 5 pounds, but suddenly he goes to 10 pounds. Well, you don't want to fight that, so you float back a little bit. How do you float back? Baby steps. The faster you can make them, but very short. Because if you take a bigger step and he sees that and feels you reversing, boom, he's going to pull you. All right? Good. Now let's talk about changing directions. Now Irene's going to lead with her lead foot, and I'm going to show you 2 things not to do. You're going to do the double step with your right foot moving there first. As I push on Irene, again, notice her right foot moved first. In other words, she went pop, pop. Okay? So I see her do that. The next time she does it, I'm going to attack her because I know she's given up her base. So do not move with your lead foot first. Okay? Don't do that. The other one is the step back. So as I press her, notice she stepped back a whole full step. Okay? The same thing here. I press, I pull. Because she has no base. So what do? Well, in reality, you always do this. If Irene pushes me a little, notice I always move my rear foot. We just talked about the baby step. And that's what triggers you to do the baby step, is that you feel that pressure. But you always release the back foot first. Because then if you try and pull you, you've got your forward foot as a base. All right? And the footwork is so fast, he really can't take advantage of it. Okay? Now, if we're going to move to our left, which a lot of people do because they're right-handed, when I'm coming down in Bangsao, that is when I'll move to my left. It's very unusual when we move to my left when my left hand is going up and move to my left. It's very awkward. So you'll usually find that when the person is coming down in Bangsao, from Bangsao, he'll move to the left. If he's coming down from Tansao, he may switch feet. He may move his feet in a different direction. And that's the problem. So let's do this first. Let's do the to the left. I mean, to the, yeah, you can move to your left. Now see as Irene moves, so I'm pivoting off my forward foot. Because all the time during the process, all through the movement, she can pull me at any time or I can pull her. So therefore, we want the lead foot to be very, very stable. All right? The problem is, what if the person wants to move to their right? And that is an awkward movement because you're leading with your right. So a lot of people have a tendency to do this. That's bad. Your alternative to that is actually switching from right lead to left lead, which most people will do if it's a big step. And there's where you have to decide at the time. A small step versus a bigger step. Remember, he's limited on how much he can move because he's tied up with you. So if he decides he's going to make a big step, boom, right there you pull him because you feel it. So it's really foolish of him to take a big step. So generally when you're moving, you'll move forward, backward, or you'll move to your left. But you usually do not move much to your right. So what you're going to have to do is experiment. have your opponent, your partner, move to the right and see what you feel like doing. All right? I just kind of flow pivot with him, even though it's awkward. As he starts to move, I jerk him. Not hard, but just enough to ground him. So as soon as, and if I'm going to move over, as soon as I move, I tend to go, whatever position I'm in, I just give a little tiny pull and push to the floor, and it grounds him. You just have to experiment. You have to see what allows you to move. And once you've gone through all these pieces and you've played with it, then you'll be able to determine whether it's practical or not. Now, we didn't do the pull. One of the things that's very important is understanding weak lines. Okay, I'll get into stance. All right, Irene is fairly solid going forward and backward. Where is her weak line? It's between her legs, right there. In other words, I can push her forward, push her that way a little bit. She can resist, resist, resist. But at that angle there, she's very weak. Forward and backward. No matter how you put your feet, right there, it's my weak line. It's through the middle. As I move it over, it changes direction, but it's always through the middle. Okay? Now, why this is important is because in Chisao, people have a tendency to want to pull you. How do you defend against that if you are right on a gray line edge to where it's strong, but it has weaknesses? By that, I mean this. If my opponent's right there and my weakness is there, this is a very natural angle for him to pull. If he has to reach out further and pull, it's awkward. If he is in here and he pulls them into me, awkward. So he'll pull me about that angle, about a 45 degree. How do I defend against that without over-exaggerating my technique by bringing my right foot further over? Now my weakness is here, but now I'm out of center. I'm not center line to him. So the way you do this is this. You put in your stance. Your toe is pointing straight forward. Then you slowly bring it in at an angle. Okay? Now, how far do you pull it in? Let me show you. Okay, here. Take in a stance, open it up a little bit. Okay, good. Now you'll see Irene's toe is straight. Now, if I pull her and she resists, now her weak line is right here. So if I pull her there, very simple. Boom. But that's a comfortable stance for her. What does she do? She turns her toe inward, dips down a little bit. Now as I pull, how far do you turn your toe? Up to you. How long before you actually feel stability when he tries to pull you? When I'm in front of somebody, my foot kind of looks like this. Because I'm very stable that way with that toe. He would have to pull me over here another 6 inches, which means he'd have to reach out. And remember, if he tries to pull you, if he tries to attack, that means his gates are open. You should attack him. Very simple. Anyway, that's some basic points of footwork. Play with that this week. Really pay attention to it. Forget the hands other than just take some quality time to do your Chisao correction, making sure every part is where it's supposed to be. Always do that. Always review the correct positions. Rotate for 30 seconds or a minute. Check your positions. Remember to do that all the time, all the time. That's basic. But then separate and work just with the footwork. And once you feel comfortable with the footwork after a bit, then start the Chisao again. Move around. Do it for like 15 seconds, then stop and look at your technique. Does your technique go sloppy again? More often than not, yes. You're going to find that movement changes everything. So you have to have that balance between the hands and the feet. The feet do their job, the hands do their job. Okay? So remember, footwork, pay attention, handwork, pay attention, bring the two together. and then do your rotation drills, check it out. Remember, a little bit of spring energy. We'll be getting more into spring energy, but at the same time, just touch, feel. Okay, good. So, aloha from Hilo, Hawaii.